Hey guys, it's Morgan coming back to you with the XR650R series. Today we are going to put the top end on this thing. We're starting by taking this clutch cover off to get the cam chain replaced. So to do that, like I said, you got to take the whole clutch cover off. No big deal, just a bunch of bolts around there. Now what we have to do is take the clutch off and this primary gear right here off of the crankshaft. Then we can get the cam chain out, put the new one in. But while it's all out, I'm going to scrape the gasket surface, which is a real thing on Hondas. It's a nightmare to get all that off, and I'm going to take that all off. I'm not going to show you guys me doing that because it's pretty boring, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. You'll maybe notice here I've got a Henson clutch basket on here because XRs are kind of known for wearing out clutches. I did a while back, so yeah, I'm gonna get busy cleaning and we'll check back in. Alright guys, real fast before I start cleaning, I got the clutch and the main gear, the primary gear out of the way. It's super simple. Clutch is like any other clutch. Main gear is a normal thread, it's not left-hand thread. Everything's normal thread, so you just buzz those off. I used to use an impact. It's a 27 on the nut for the clutch and a 30 on the nut for the primary gear. I just lay them out here. You'll notice I just have the bolts for the cover scattered, not laid out, because I'll show you how that works. I've shown before in other videos. It's really simple to find out which way that goes, or where they go. So anyway, now we're going to take the cam chain off. It's a little bit different from other designs. First of all, there's this little tube. You got to pull that out. Put that there. Make sure you pay attention to which way it goes. It can only go in one way, but you know, there we go. That allows that. Now we're going to pull this gear just out of the way. Boom, there we go. Right in the oil. That's lovely. Need to move that pan. But there we go. So now we're ready to get cleaning. The only thing that doesn't really come out of the way is this. There's dowels. Most of them stayed in this cover. There's one that didn't right there. But we get those out of the way. Now I got my gasket scraper. I'm going to come through here and clean all that, and then take this over and clean the gasket off of that. Alright guys, we've got everything cleaned up. Let me show you the clutch cover. Did a pretty good job on that. Ended up good. There's all the gasket material, but we got it nice and clean. Everything's ready to go. Now we're going to take this cam chain, new one, and we're going to install it, and it's pretty simple. Just going to drop it down through, and then I gotta put you guys down. Alright, so there you can see I slid that gear out. Now we're gonna push it back in. So now that gear is in. It is keyed onto here. Doesn't really matter, I don't think, but I think it does have a specific way, because one of these teeth on this, one of these splines has a groove in it. So it probably is supposed to go a certain way, but I don't think it matters really, because the timing is all done up here on the head. So anyway, that's in. Now gonna take our tube here, make sure that this chain comes out of the way and it goes in between. All right, so now we got that in there, and I don't think it matters on its orientation, but that's all good. Now we're just gonna start putting everything back together, and start with the primary gear and this Kickstart gear over here, which is on the, I guess that's the counter shaft. Yeah, that's the counter shaft. It's an idler gear actually. So yeah, let's get that on. All right. All right, so it's kind of hard holding this. I'm gonna grab a hold of that with my hand because that's on the end of the crank, so it's not really gonna try to spin too hard, but I don't want to spin it too much with the cam chain on there. So I'm gonna sit you guys down over here. Next is the Kickstart, and it's got this spring back here. You got to make sure that all lines up, and this washer is cupped. There we go. That goes onto the spring to hold it. And that spring is super stiff on these. Now idler. Clutch basket. And wiggle all these gears so it slides all the way on. Gotta make sure this thrust washer gets in there first. I find it easier to take the inner hub, put it on, and then start dropping plates in. It's funny, these plates are a little discolored because if you guys haven't seen it, you should check out, I have a couple videos on me riding this bike on 5 miles of hell in Utah, and I definitely got the clutch a little hot, but they're still good. Alright, then we got a cupped washer. You guys probably can't see that on the camera, but it's cupped. It says outside on one, so that's outside the motor. It goes on. It's a Belleville washer to help keep tension on it, so it keeps this from coming loose. But there's another thing I'll show you here in a second. So now, like I've shown in lots of videos, to tighten this, you don't need a special holder. Once you have all the plates and everything in, you can just push on the plate, and that'll hold that tight enough. Now, let me show you. This Honda has, let's see, so this Honda, I don't know if you guys can see, there's a divot, there we go, in the shaft actually. We're going to drive this into it. Now obviously I didn't replace this, I don't think we need to. Between that cupped washer and this, it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to drive that in there, being careful not to break any of it. Alright, there you go. Now you can see how that's driven in there. So now that's not coming loose. Now we're going to take our push rod, our pressure plate, we got our clutch springs. This all goes like normal. Tighten those up and then slide the cover on. Alright, we got all the dowels, all the O-rings in place. Now we're just going to slide the cover on nice and easy. Alright, so if you guys noticed, I grabbed the cam chain and I pulled on it to move the motor. It's because the oil pump drive on this, it's keyed, but it's not like some that only has like 2 positions or 1 position you can go on. Fortunately, it's splined. It's not bad, but you do most of the times have to kind of move that motor just a little bit to get it to slide on. So, alright, cover's on. I'm going to bolt these, I'll put the cover bolts back in. Oh, let me just show you, I mentioned before, because like I said, I just throw them all in a pile, no big deal. It's because all the bolts should stick out the same amount. So you can see that's too much, I think. That, there we go. So see how that sticks out about that much? Now, if I take all of these, which are many differing length, these are probably all going to be clutch cover. So yeah, see that? They're all sticking out about the same long. So now let's find other deep ones. Let's try them here. Nope, see that sticks out too far. So let's come over here. There we go. So hopefully that little tech tip guide will help you if you don't want to organize the bolts into like a piece of cardboard or put them in the right spot, whatever, or try to remember anything like that. Hopefully that'll help you. Just know that you can just put them all in there. It's no problem. For me, it saves time because, first of all, I usually remember about where they go, but then also to me, like laying them all out and making a diagram or something like that takes way too long. So anyway, tighten all those down to 7 foot-pounds and we'll get on to the top end. All right, guys, it's time to put the piston on the connecting rod. I've already got the base gasket on. I cleaned that off obviously really well. Got it all good. See, I've got my rag in here to make sure that if I drop anything, it doesn't go down in the crankcase. I've inspected the top of the rod. It's in perfect shape. So now we got our piston over here. This is a stock style piston from, I think it's actually a Wiseco. It's a, I don't know, it might be a Honda. Nah, I think it's a Wiseco. I got it from one of you guys here online. I think it was Red. Sent me this. I mean, I traded him for some stuff. Anyway, it's already got the rings installed. All that. I checked the in gap. I took them off, checked the in gap. It's all good. But you'll see it says intake, IN. So that is going to go towards the intake and not, there's no arrow pointing towards the exhaust, which would normally be up here like that. It's already got one of the circlips installed. So now what we're going to do, take our wrist pin. Unfortunately, he put the circlip on the far side, so I'm gonna come over here. All right, so piston's on, intake's towards the back, that's good. Now we got to put our circlip in here. Just like all circlips, you want to have the opening either down or up and not to the side, because to the side, as the piston's going up and down, there's more likely a chance of it compressing and coming out. Now, I've never actually seen it happen, but you know, why take the chance?
Stay busy.
Stay busy. All right. Got the clip in. It's all good. I got the gap down, which is easier. Now, for the rings, you want to, it doesn't really matter where the end gaps are. You just don't want them lined up with each other. So, as long as they're not lined up, I like to put them towards the intake if possible. So this one's for the intake, the other one's over here. That keeps it a little bit cooler, less chance of it like sticking out. So go grab the cylinder, we'll get this thing on. All right, got our beautifully clean cylinder thanks to buddy Mike Schwartz, who has Moto Vapor Blast. His company here in Montrose, he vapor blasted this thing, makes it look brand new. I also ran a hone through it. Yes, I know, very controversial thing to do. But put a crosshatch back in there, looks perfect. So now what I like to do, I take some I don't know, red line synthetic assembly lube, I guess is who makes it. Anyway, a little bit of assembly lube, a little bit on your finger. We're just gonna run that around the bottom of the cylinder so that as the rings go through, it picks up a little bit of that. And I just like to do that. I feel like it, I don't know, it just feels right to me. It like slides in, gives a little bit of lube to those rings as they start, keeps them from scratching anything up. Some people put them together dry, some people do other things. This is what I like to do, just a little bit, not a lot. And then let's bring you in tight here. Come here. All right, guys, as we're sliding this on, I want to make sure we got this dowel here with its O-ring, dowel there, dowel there. The bottom of this cylinder has a nice chamfer on it, so as long as you're really nice and slow about sliding it on, you won't have any problems. You don't really have to compress the rings with your fingers or anything like that. So now we're going to slide it down. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure we get the cam chain up through there. Got our guide here, you got to make sure that stays in its place. And we're going to take this and we're going to come up. go. Now I like to put these 2 bolts right in here first, and then we're going to put the kicker back on and roll her through and make sure that everything's moving perfectly before we go any further. All right, there we go. Now let's slide this back on. Doesn't have to be in the right spot or anything. Now we'll just take hand, rotate it through. Stop close to top dead center, because that's where we're going to want it to time everything. But there we go. Everything looks awesome. Really happy about that. Next thing is going to be the cylinder head. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the dowels. There's 2 dowels. They got to go in here and here. Then we'll get this head gasket, and we'll slide that cylinder head on, and then we'll worry about the cam and getting everything timed up. All right, guys, now time to put the head on. Got the head gasket on, the dowels in. To that, we also installed also put the other cam chain guide in. So that's something you got to know, is that this cam chain guide, this one stays in the whole time, the one that is attached. This one, you got to put it in after you put the cylinder on, but before you put the head gasket on, because there's little nubbins right in here that go underneath that head gasket, and it gets pinched down by the head. So you can't put it on after the head. So make sure you do that first. Now we're just going to take our head, we're going to slide her down on there nice and easy. One big thing to remember is keep this up if you can, the cam chain, keep it up and relatively tight. Although the design on these is pretty good, it can't really let it fall off of the crankshaft. So it's pretty good design with it. Got that little, I don't know, cup protector underneath it. So let's put that on. So now that the head's on, I like to take something and just slide it through the cam chain, keep it falling down. Now we're going to grab the cylinder head nuts and washers, put them on there, and we're going to torque it down. I got to look that value up. I'm not sure what the torque value is on this. It's probably somewhere around 40. All right, guys, looked it up, 43 foot-pounds. We've got our fancy dancy snap-on digital torque wrench. Goes around and hit these. Like with all torquey things, you want to do them in a crisscross pattern, not just go around in a circle. There we go. All right, next up, installing the cam. Let me raise this thing up a little bit more. Show you, we're going to make sure we got it at top dead center so that we can get the thing timed correctly. All right, guys, so Honda puts this lovely thing right here. Unfortunately, they don't put a hole here to be able to rotate it, but we got pretty close. There's a line in there. There's no way I'm going to be able to show you, but there's an F and then a T, and you want to put it on the T, obviously. The F is for fire. It says when it is supposed to fire, which is just before top dead center, and then the T. So we're really close. So I'm going to leave it right there. It's really hard to get these things truly at top dead center because of just the way the crank is and the stator. It doesn't want to stay there, but that's all right. So we're gonna it's really close, so we'll be able to check it once we get ready. So all right, now, all right, guys, so installing the cam. On most cams, like dual overhead cams, stuff like that, you want the lobes up and out as you put them in. On this, it's down and out because it actuates rockers that then open the valves instead of just being on top of the valves. So I'm going to slide this through. I've taken the bearing off of this side so that this can go down into the head like that. So we can get the cam chain on. I'm going to set it up with the cam retarded just a little bit so that it, because I know that the crank needs to rotate forward a little bit to be right on top of that center. Before anybody yells at me for saying the word retarded, take it easy. It's a term for when the motor is backwards just a little bit, or something's out of time backwards, which is kind of interesting that they call that retarded. But anyway, so this on. I'm thinking just one more tooth out. So now I'm going to check it. All right, we got it right. I'm going to reinstall this dowel, and then actually I got to clean up the valve cover, and then we'll go to putting that on. All right, guys, so we got the valve cover ready to go. Everything's all clean. Now we got to apply some, let's see, there we go, 3-bond 1184 to this surface. There is no gasket that goes on that surface, so we're going to do that. But before I do that, I went ahead and loosened up the valve clearances, the adjusters all the way on both the intakes and exhausts, so that as it goes on, there'll be no resistance as I slide it on, because I want to be able to put it on there and just drop it down without having to do anything to it. Whatever people want. All right, so like I said, you don't want that. You don't want any resistance as you put it down, and those valves are, I mean, they're actually probably further down into the head than they were because they're new and all that stuff. Also, I wanted to take a second here to talk about, if you watch the other video of me building the head and notice that there was a slight leak in the one valve. I actually didn't notice it until later, and I'd already filmed it anyway. So just so you know, the way I solved that, first of all, that wasn't enough of a leak for the bike to not run anyway. It would have started right up, had no problems, and probably sealed up because the valves would have banged into the head and seated and all that. But what I did was, after I had those in there and I saw that leak, there's only the one, I think it was the intake. Anyway, I can't remember now, but what I did was I took the spring back off of that. I took it and I slapped it, on the head just with the suction cup, like I would have if I had lapped it. Banged it around a few times, turned it around a little bit. I didn't put any lapping compound on it. I put it back together and it didn't leak. So just so you know, that's how I dealt with that. But that really wasn't enough of a leak to be much of a concern anyway. So, all right, now I'm going to put the 3-bond on there. We're going to put that down on top. Alright guys, now that we've let that sit and dry for about 10 minutes so that can tack up, we'll go put it on the bike. Alright, I'm going to put all the bolts in, tighten them all down. It's about 7 foot-pounds on these, so yeah, I'm going to do that, and then we'll check the valve clearances, get that set, and then I'll probably turn you guys off while I bolt everything up, and then we'll see if she starts. Alright guys, got the valve cover all bolted back on. Now I'm going to set the valves, I'm going to set the intakes at 6 and the exhaust at 8. That's probably a little on the big side, although I think it's actually pretty close. But I also know that they're going to break in a little bit. So got my 6,000th feeler gauge. You guys have seen me do this before, but yeah, anyway, I'm going to set them. It's at top dead center compression, so I don't have to worry about left and, intake and exhaust and making sure it's right, whatever. So I know it's good. I got my decompression set up here. I know that it's got plenty of give, so no big deal. I'm just going to go ahead and set these, and then, yeah, I think I'm going to turn you guys off, get everything bolted back up, and we'll see if this thing starts. Alright guys, we got her all back together, or at least most back together. The seat's not on it, whatever, but motor's back together. There's coolant in it, there's oil in it, and now we're going to see if it starts. If you guys have never started an XR650, There's a specific way to do it. This thing has way more compression now, so it's even more important that you do it the right way. Comment below if you want me to make a video on how to start an XR650. I'm not going to show you guys right here, but there's, like I said, there's definitely a right and a wrong way to do it. Super stoked. Bike fire's right up. Full transparency, I actually started it at once, but it really truly started on the second kick. But with XRs, one thing you do have to know about them is that when you put oil in them, they take 1.7 liters, basically 1.8, 1.7 anyway. And so if you try to pour that all into the frame, the fill is right down in here. It will run everywhere, all over the place. So that's no good. You don't want that. But you have to pour a liter in, start it, let it run down, pump it through, and then pour the rest in and get it up to death. So now I'm just going to let it run, make sure it's pumping fluid, make sure there's no leaks, and all that good stuff. So there you go, guys. XR650R top end, start to finish. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this series of videos. It's been a lot of fun to make them. I'm excited to have my bike back and not burning oil. That makes a big difference to me. Yeah, now we're just, there's other things I want to do. I mentioned it in some of the other videos. If anybody is interested in sponsoring us, like maybe a rear wheel and hub, front wheel and hub, things like that, or plastics or whatever, I'd love to bring this thing all the way back to new. I can't really afford to do all of that myself. I can make it fine and safe and good, but to do all the fancy shiny stuff is not going to work. So anyway, I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you get out and spread the gospel of two wheels, and I desperately hope that what we're doing here at Highland Cycles is inspiring you guys to work on and get out and ride your dirt bikes.